Guys, welcome back to the Chief Life Podcast. I am Matthias Turner, and today I'm very excited. I've got Belinda Moss with me. Belinda, welcome.
Thank you. Hi, happy to be here.
So Belinda actually works alongside us, one of the gems of the Chief Life, and we were super stoked to get Belinda in because of what her studies have kind of led her to, and how in depth she can really dive in with people, and really it kind of adds an extra layer to what we are able to do for people, because we can say, hey, look, if the diet itself is not working, potentially there's some hormonal stuff going on. Let's go and get some blood tests and some extra saliva tests and bits and pieces done. And Belinda can be your go-to and really help you as to figuring out what might be actually the deeper level problem. And I'm kind of excited. That's what today's podcast is going to be about, is actually just some of the questions that I think you might come across, but some of the unfoldings of things that people might not have thought of before as well. So yeah, I'm kind of excited to dive down that. But you are a nutritional and dietetics it's pretty much nutritional and dietetics medicine is what you do, but clinical nutritionist. How long did you dive into that route, like into study before now?
So I started studying, it's 8 or 9 years ago now.
Yeah.
And I came across that because I went and saw a naturopath when I was trying to fall pregnant and I was having trouble with fertility.
Mm-hmm.
And she did a live blood analysis where she pricked my finger and looked at my blood. And I found that so fascinating, what she could tell about my nutritional status and what was going on just by looking at a little drop of blood. And I just went, wow, that's so powerful. That's so cool. And wanted to learn more. And that kind of was the start of it. I thought I was healthy. I was not healthy. I was doing all the, low fat, calorie restriction, that kind of stuff. I wasn't feeling terrible, but I also probably wasn't at my healthiest. Obviously, I was having trouble to fall pregnant. So that's a big sign. Imbalance. Yeah. And so I started investigating nutrition courses and found one that really aligned with my beliefs at Endeavour College of Natural Health, and that's where I studied nutrition. I started full-time and then I fell pregnant and had a baby, and so then I studied part-time from then onwards, and then since I've finished, my learning just continues and continues as part of being registered with a national association to practice as a clinical nutritionist. I do have to continue my education. So I'm always learning. I've been doing webinars just this week all about the gut-skin axis and how your gut health relates to what's happening on your skin surface. And it's fascinating and I love it. And I'm just always learning. So I think it's a lifelong thing now.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's the cool thing about, I think, even the position we're in, is that we get to consistently work with multiple different people, and how things react with different people is different. And that's what we were talking about before we even started the podcast. But I mean, that kind of leads me into the first question, which are, what are some of the signs and symptoms that people can look for in their own body that there might be like a hormonal imbalance or a nutrition deficiency? Like you just said, the skin might have a rash. You occasionally see people, like if they've got a zinc deficiency, they've got white spots on their fingernails, or someone who's got yellow armpits or like yellow skin. And it's kind of just a bit bizarre, but like, what are some of these signs and symptoms people can look out for?
Yeah, so definitely nails. And I always try and look at people's nails in a consultation, because they can tell us a lot of things. Like you said, the white spots can indicate zinc deficiency. If their nails are really brittle and flaky, it might be iron deficiency. And I use those tools kind of to guide my questioning and guide what else I need to look for in that person to try and figure out what's going on. So nails, definitely, if they're not nice and strong and growing straight, and if they're starting to curve over, or there's lots of ridges or anything like that, that can be signs that there's deficiencies happening, and your body's trying to tell you. Skin, dry skin can relate to lots of different things, whether it's just that you're not hydrated enough, not drinking enough water, can be essential fatty acid deficiencies, or that they're not getting to where they need to go. Thyroid issues can impact how your skin's behaving and looking, because the thyroid helps to regulate that. If you've got wounds that aren't healing very well, then we can look at zinc again. It's all just, it's part of the bigger picture. And it does help to guide me as to where I need to go when I'm asking all those questions in a consultation. Other things I get people to look for is what their stools are doing. So when they go to the toilet, a lot of people say, I don't look at it, I don't know, but I want you to look at it.
No, exactly.
Because it can tell me so much about what's happening with your digestion, whether you might be having trouble digesting fats. You might see some pale coloured stools, or they might be more sticky, or might be really odorous. They might float, things like that. If there's undigested food in there, I want to know about it. If it's a funny colour, I want to know about it. How often you go, how easy it is, all that kind of stuff can tell you things. So,
yeah, if it's too runny, if it's not coming at all, like they're all big signs.
Absolutely. And people don't realise, they go, yeah, it's pretty normal, but what's normal for you might not be what it's supposed to be.
Exactly.
You've just lived with that all your life, only going once every 3 days. And I think, oh my God, that's, we need to address that.
Yeah.
But for somebody might just go, well, that's how it's always been. So they don't realise it's a problem.
Yeah, and I think they also think that they can't change anything there. That that's just their body. There's no difference. It's not always going to be that way. It's like, no, if we do dive in a little deeper, we can make some big changes.
Absolutely. And I always say to people too, if you've got food sitting in there for 3 or 4 days, would you eat it if it was sat on the bench for 3 or 4 days? Probably not. So you don't want to put that in your body.
Yeah.
It needs to be getting passed quite regularly to make sure that we're not building up toxins in there.
You're not going to be able to get the most, the best beneficial nutrients from it at that stage, I wouldn't think.
That's right. That's right. Quite the opposite, actually. Yeah.
And so obviously something that you dive into is looking past just what the skin level is, or just the face-to-face level is. You go and we do some tests and we actually you dive deeper.
Yes.
Is there things that like, obviously food is very healing in what it does, and how we utilize food is really healing. But is there circumstances where food is not enough and we need to actually supplement and utilize these other things?
I think so, yeah. I mean, it's up to the individual, and I get clients that say, I'm not interested in supplementing, I want to do it with food. And that's okay, and I love that, and I love food, and food's so powerful. But there are times when, say if you've got a deficiency, say an iron deficiency, doing it with food's going to take a lot longer than if we just supplement and get your levels back up and get you feeling better. So there are circumstances. There's also things, times where people don't eat certain foods. So if you're vegan, there's certain nutrients you just can't get from a plant-based diet, and you really need to supplement. And then also I use supplements also, I guess, as a form of natural medicine. So they can have a therapeutic use at a certain dose that would be higher than what you could get from food. So I'll use things like, for example, amino acids for anxiety. It depends on what the anxiety is about and how it's presenting as to which amino acids I would use. But just eating some protein is not going to give you a high enough amount of that calming amino acid that I really want to use. So then it's really targeted and used more like a medicine. So I definitely think that there's cases.
Once again, the protein source is going to be different, right? Like some protein sources might give you that amino acid, whereas others aren't going to give you that at all.
That's right. Yeah, or they'll give you small amounts of it, but not enough to really have a therapeutic effect. And it's quite amazing how quickly, if used properly and appropriately, how well the targeted amino acids can help with things like anxiety and calming down. So it's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, obviously then you change a whole person's persona, right? Like it's changing their perspective, changing everything in their life potentially just from one little thing. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, can have such a good effect. Help people sleep better. There's so many ways that we can use it. So yeah, there's definitely, it's individual. It depends on the person, what's going on, why they've got the deficiencies. So I wouldn't just say go and eat that food because it contains that nutrient without making sure they're actually going to be able to absorb it and utilize it. And also, current farming practices, we tend to be not seeing as higher levels of certain nutrients in the food anymore as what it used to be. Things have changed a bit. So there's always, you can do, I mean, food's still wonderful, still really beneficial to eat all your healthy foods, and there's lots of lovely nutrients in them, but sometimes they're lacking a bit and we need to find other ways to get them.
Yeah, I've heard of studies that are showing that it's literally like half the nutrients now compared to what it was because of we've pretty much utilized the soil that we've
Mm.
raped and privileged from the soil for so long that it just it can't provide the nutrients anymore. So
Yeah,
yes, you're still
yeah.
getting nutrients from the vegetables, but like I said, it could be up to
Not as
half the
much.
amount for what we used to
Yeah,
be able to get.
yeah. And also we want to have access to stuff all year round. We don't want to
Mm,
only eat it when it's in season. So then we've got to think about where it's coming from, how long
yeah.
it's stored for,
Mm,
because the longer you store it, the more the nutrients get depleted. And then also how you're preparing it, cooking
yeah.
it sometimes can
Take
deplete
away
certain
nutrients.
nutrients. And
Yeah.
yeah, so there's lots of factors in there.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I haven't actually seen it myself, but apparently there's warehouses full of fruit that essentially gets frozen for the year, and then it gets utilized for the following year for
Wow.
these
Yeah.
coals, stuff like that. I don't know how true it is or not, but yeah,
Yeah, I'm not sure either. I haven't seen it for myself, but I've
no,
certainly heard those things, and that's why I try and encourage people to try and shop local, shop at your farmer's market, get to know the suppliers and where your food's actually coming from, so that you know that it's as good and fresh as it could be.
hmm
Yeah,
yeah, definitely. Yeah, I like sourcing from local or organic farmers if we can. Like
definitely.
same for the meat sources, like anything like that is really really valuable, and you feel almost nice because you're doing something good for the locals as well. Then you're supporting the
Yeah, that's
local
right.
area. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
For testing, like obviously every person's a little bit different. So how do you kind of approach what tests you're going to do and what tests can you actually run people through?
Yeah, cool. I love testing. Pathology can tell us so much,
Mm,
and often it's nice to just be able to get some data and get to the bottom of something rather than guessing and going, oh, well, I think it might be that, or I think we might need this or whatever. So testing can be really, really beneficial. I don't like to test everybody just as a blanket rule, but
yeah.
if there's something serious going on, or we're not really sure what it might be, then I'll look at testing. Quite often people will come to me with tests that they've had from their GP and the
hmm
GP said it's fine, but they just want me to have a look over it, and that's fine. And there is merit to that, but then there's other testing that I can do that gives us a more in-depth kind of look at how different things are working.
Yeah.
So I can order things like hormone testing, so we can do blood spot or we can do saliva testing for reproductive hormones, thyroid hormones, adrenal hormones, so stress hormones, things like that. We can do stool testing. So if you've got some gut issues that just aren't resolving and we're not really sure what might be going on, I don't collect it, you collect it. A little kit, actually, it just gets sent to
It's
you in the
sent to
mail.
you.
A kit
Yeah.
gets sent, you collect your stool, you send it back. Somebody looks at it, and then they send me the report.
Yeah.
So that can look at all sorts of things. That can tell us a lot about your digestion and how it's working, if you're struggling with certain things, what your microbiome's looking like, if you've got any pathogens or parasites in there that we need to address. We can also do urine testing for amino acid levels. So I might want to see what might be impacting mental health.
Yeah.
We can look for nutritional deficiencies. I can order the same tests as what the doctor can, but I can't do that under Medicare. So if the doctor's not willing or doesn't agree that that test might be relevant for you, but we really want to check on it, then I can order that. So something like iron or vitamin D or something like that the doctor could do, but they may choose not to, and that's their choice. If they don't think it's relevant, they don't have to do it. Then we can, but the client would have to then pay for that.
Yeah.
We also look at food allergies. We can do a hair sample and see if you've got a buildup of heavy metals in the body, or toxins. We can do genetic testing. We can do mycotoxin testing to see if you've got mold exposure, all that kind of stuff. There's so much that we can test.
It's going, yeah.
It just depends on the person and what's going on for them and whether or not that's going to be of benefit to find out on a cellular level what might be happening.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I've gone down the route of doing a few tests myself, and it's so interesting the stuff you get back, and it's things you'd never really think of, and you just all of a sudden it unravels this big long tail for you of what potentially might be going on. So it is so worthwhile. Like stool testing, I've done a few different times. I've done stool testing, one to see just what the microbiome was doing. Another time because I had some SIBO going on and I wasn't really sure what was happening, and that was how we kind of found out about it and went down the route
Yeah.
And it's just so insightful. I mean, I've done some saliva tests for genetic testing. I've done blood tests plenty, and I've just gone back and got my bloods done. I'm really intrigued to see what happens, because I've completely transitioned my diet this last year, this last 3 months, just to see what happens.
Awesome.
Yeah. And I'm super stoked just to find that out. It's just because it's like I'm using myself as an experiment.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is really insightful. And I think, like you were just saying, I had to really fight my doctor to get things like the zinc tested and to get the magnesium tested. I'm like, hey, like this would be really beneficial. And he's like, oh, do you really need it? And I'm like,
yeah.
Yes. Like, why would we not? And
Yeah.
so I think depending on how you approach it and depending on how nice you are to your doctor, you can really get those things for free as well on the medical system.
It definitely depends. And I have doctors who just go, no, I don't understand. I don't see the point of testing that. I don't want to do it. And then I have others that are really good, that are happy to learn from it as well, and go, oh yeah, I've never heard of that, but we'll have a look. So it just depends. All the doctors are different. Some think that I don't really know what I'm talking about, I think.
Yeah.
And then others are quite open to, recognising that nutritional medicine does have a place and can be beneficial to people. So it just depends. It can be tricky.
It's unfortunate, right? Like, because they go and do potentially maybe 3 months of study, if even, on nutrition, and then they think that that's the all.
Yeah. I've had discussions with other practitioners about it too, and they might say, oh, I wish they did more training in it. And I say, well, I don't really wish that they did more training in nutrition. I just wish that they would recognise that we are valid.
Exactly.
In what we've done. Like, I've done a degree in nutritional medicine. I do know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And it is valid and it is important.
It's something so niche.
So that we can work together. I want to work
Exactly.
together. It's not me or you. It's us together helping our client.
And I think that's where it gets lost, because they are broad. They're open for everything. They know a little bit about everything. They don't know enough about any one thing. Not always the case, but usually the case. So it's like, why would they not niche out and find someone that can help out? So
that's it. Yeah.
And
when I have worked with doctors, we tend to get really great outcomes for the patients, because there's two sides that are helping instead of just one side helping. So.
Yeah. And so that leads me into my next question, because often you'll go to a doctor and they'll say, okay, you're within the healthy range. You just might be a little low or a little high on this scale, which is fine. So you don't have to worry about it. Whereas that's something that I would rebut against, depending on what it is. But say, for instance, like a 40-year-old man who's got low testosterone that's still within the range. When we look at the testosterone range, it's huge. Like, it's such a big scale. And so if you're on the low end of that, you're not necessarily producing where you should be producing. Is that always the case? Like, I guess the first thing to ask is, if you're within the healthy or average range, is that actually healthy and average? Or is there things that we should be looking to do to move it up or down, depending on what it is?
So for me, I think I don't want to be average. I want to be above average. I want to be good. And when you think about the state of our current health, and majority of people aren't sitting in that optimal kind of level of health, I don't want to be kind of sitting in the middle of that average scale, I want to be optimal. I want to be firing on all cylinders. So it does depend. Again, it depends on the client. And I go with the whole treat the client, not the pathology. So if someone's presenting to me with low energy and other signs that things aren't right, their libido's low, their energy's low, they're a bit tubby around the belly, and they've got this low end testosterone reading, I go, okay, we need to have a look at that before you get so low that the doctor wants to medicate you. I'd rather look at it before we get to that point, and try and support you with nutrients and lifestyle changes and things that are going to be beneficial to your testosterone production, so that we don't get to a point where you do need to be medicated. And it's this, I see it a lot of the time. People will come and say, the doctor said everything was fine. But if they're presenting with these symptoms and they're saying, I've got no energy, then obviously something's not fine. So we need to try and work it out.
And that seems very rational to me. Like, that makes a lot more sense to me. But unfortunately, I think a lot of people just take the doctor's word as final. Like, okay, well, we're good then. Like,
I think for a long time that they're the one-stop shop, and that's where you go for all your health concerns. But now that there's more understanding around the powers of natural medicine, which if you go back in history, that's all that there was before there was
exactly
modern medicine. It really does have a lot of merit. And there's also, you know, I do hear a little bit about the whole, but it's not evidence-based, but I can tell you it is evidence-based.
Yeah.
And all through my degree, every single assignment I did had to be fully referenced with scientific papers. I couldn't just make stuff up. So, yeah, I mean, like I said, I think the doctors or the reference ranges really are indicative of whether or not somebody needs to be put on medication or hospitalised or need, you know, some kind of medical intervention. But if we can stop you getting to that point, then why not do that?
Exactly right. And I think like we were using testosterone as an example, and the replacements that they put you on, it's not going to fix the problem. It literally just boosts it for that time that you're taking the replacement. And as soon as you remove it, you go back to having low testosterone. So you're either stuck on the supplement for the rest of your life, or we make some changes to make sure that your lifestyle is then supporting you boosting your testosterone. So
exactly, yeah, and not getting to the root cause of why things aren't right. It's, you know, you're never going to get them right. You're just going to be band-aiding and masking those things forever, and it'll just keep coming up. Meds, which can cause other problems. So.
Yeah, exactly right. And I think that's where doing these tests with someone like yourself is really valuable, because you get to have an insider's perspective as to what actually is a healthier range or an optimal range, rather than it just being hey, you're within a range. It's great. Yeah.
And one that I commonly see is iron stores. So ferritin levels, I like them to be up around 100, or 50 and 100 usually. But the cutoff, the low end of the reference range, depending on which labs you go through, is 30. So if you're below 30 before anyone's going to help you, that's really low. You'd be really feeling the effects of that, I would think. And I'll see people who are in the 30s, you know, they might be 32, and they'll say, well, the doctor said it's fine because it's in the range, but I'm really tired. And then I'll give them a supplement, and within a couple of weeks they feel great. And so you have avoided getting to that point where it got so bad that you were really struggling.
And so aside from feeling really tired, what are other signs that iron might be low?
Iron being low, you can see that in skin, you can see it in your immune system. Sometimes, I mean, iron is needed for so many things, because you need it to make our blood and carry oxygen around. Fingernails can get quite brittle if you're iron deficient. Also, one physical sign that I will look for, particularly if I'm seeing someone face to face, it's a little bit harder on the online consults, is just the conjunctiva inside the lower eyelid. Yeah. If that's pale, that will tend to happen with an iron deficiency, whereas if it's nice pink and red, then that looks like you've got pretty good iron stores. Tiredness tends to be the big one. You know, people I've just got no energy, particularly, or struggling, you know, shortness of breath after a workout, or during a workout, going up a flight of stairs, even you might get puffed, and that quite often is the low iron will affect you, because you haven't got that oxygen transported around as well as it should be.
That's interesting. That's super interesting. I mean, there's so many interesting things that come from this, and it does lead me on to my next question for you, because you ran a liver specialty course in our members group last year. It was just before Christmas. It was just pretty much around like, hey, how you can help to detox the liver a little bit, be a little bit nicer to your liver over the Christmas
period. Love your liver.
Exactly.
It's so important.
It really is, right? And one of the things that you mentioned was if you have certain time of the night that you're waking up continuously, that it can be related to certain parts of the body. And so say for instance you wake, I don't know, what time was it? Was it 2 p.m.?
Between 1 and 3. Yeah, between 1 and 3. Yeah. So sometimes I'll get a client and they say, I wake up every night. I go, well, what time do you wake up? Is it the same time every night? And if they know and they go, oh, yeah, it's 2 a.m., that's a little sign to me that possibly something's going on with their liver, and then I need to investigate that more. So I'll ask other questions about how their liver's functioning. Do they get nausea? Do they get headaches? Have they got low energy, poor appetite? Are their stools pale? Do they have trouble digesting fats? All that kind of stuff to try and work it out. So it is just another little tool that I use to try and guide what might be happening for someone and see what's going on. But it's based on the Chinese medicine belief of the 24-hour body clock.
Yeah.
And they believe that the body clock's divided into 12 two-hour intervals, and each interval that's where your body energy, or your chi, they call it, is moving through different organ systems. And so that's happening all day, every day. And liver happens to be between 1 and 3. And that's why I quite often pick up on that. If a client says, I wake up 2 o'clock every night, then that might be a sign that their liver's struggling, or that something's going on. Other ones that I tend to see sometimes, not as much as liver, is the lung. So that's between 3 and 5 is the lung one. And sometimes that could be happening, and people go, I'm waking up really early every morning, about 4 o'clock, 4:30. And then I'll know to investigate a little bit more. Are you short of breath? Do you get asthma? Maybe they've just got a little bit of a cough or something that's going on there. But the Chinese medicine belief also is that it can relate to your emotions as well. So particularly the liver between 1 a.m. and 3 a.m. can also be when people, or relevant to people who might be feeling feelings of anger or resentment. Just quite interesting. And then the lung one, the 3 to 5 a.m., they believe it's more related to grief or sadness, which is also quite interesting. So there's charts that you can look up, and I can post one if you want me to link it, that sort of go through the entire day and the different times that relate to different parts of the body. I also quite like that between 5 a.m. and 7 a.m. is large intestine. So that's a nice time to get up out of bed and go and do a nice big bowel motion.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. I think, I mean, Chinese medicine is really interesting, and there's so much to it. The one part that I've heard of is around the hot and cold foods, and it doesn't necessarily mean that the food itself is hot or cold. They're talking about the way it actually processes in the body, and how some people, like, it goes right back to, I think, depending on almost like astrology, based on what you should actually be eating. Like, hey, because you were born in this time, your body deals better with cold foods only, or with only hot foods, and it goes on. And that's quite an interesting theory to me.
It's fascinating.
It really is. And I think so many people hear things like that and they say, oh, Chinese medicine's just woo-woo, like there's no backing to it. But really, there is a lot of studies that show to it. And I think that's once again where the nutritional medicine really comes into play, is utilizing not only just Chinese medicine, but it's mixes and bits and pieces of everything. Yeah,
that's right. And that's like I said before, it's just another tool that I use that helps guide where I might be going with my questioning, because anyone who's had a consult with me knows that initial consultation is an hour of questions, and it's all just me data gathering, and I'll take all that information away and I'll map it out, and I'll try and figure out how each thing is relating to something else to get a really good picture of what's going on for you. So I'll use aspects of traditional Chinese medicine. I look at Ayurvedic medicine. I'll look at, of course, all the evidence-based scientific literature about nutrients and imbalances and how our bodies work, how we absorb nutrients, the biochemistry, all of that stuff, to try and figure out exactly what's going on for my client, so that I can then work out the best course of treatment for them and how we're going to tackle what's happening.
Yeah, no, that's magical. That's awesome. Cool. I think if you could link that, maybe just link it in the members group though.
For sure.
Yeah, if anyone who's listening who's not a part of the members group, you guys can jump across on the Facebook. On Facebook, it's just the Chief Life Members page. You can request to be in that one, and we'll join you on into it.
Join in, it's so fun.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, this is something that we kind of touched on before, and it's kept coming up throughout the conversation a little bit. It's not actually, but it's like parts that make me go alarm bells. And it does come back to the large spread of people who are spreading or moving to the plant-based diet or going to the vegan diet right now. And a lot of people are saying that it's a more sustainable way, or it's the healthier way of the world, and it's the way that everyone should be moving. I don't agree, but within saying that, I did want to ask some questions as to, like, if you are doing the plant-based diet right now, what are some of the things that you're commonly seeing people are missing out on? Things that people are not getting through the food that we need to make sure we're supplementing with.
Yeah. So I firstly want to say, personally, I need meat.
Yeah.
I understand why some people don't want to go there. It works
Yeah.
really well for some people. It works not so well for other people. I feel like I would struggle if I wasn't consuming animal proteins, but that's just me. And that's what nutritional medicine is all about. It's so personal. It's individual. I want to support you to be as healthy as you can be and in line with your beliefs. So if you want to be vegan, that's totally your choice. I will not judge. But there are some things that I do see as problematic sometimes with vegetarian or vegan clients who aren't doing it as well as they should be.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it can be done quite well. And I have seen clients who are doing it really well. And they just come to me and go, I just want to check that everything's all right. And I check it and everything's all right. So it's good. But I do commonly see, I mean, B12 is the top one, I'd say. And that's because it's found pretty much exclusively in animal products. So vegans need to supplement it. Mm-hmm. Vegetarians can get away with it maybe if they're eating enough eggs and dairy. Mm-hmm. But it is something that I would recommend keeping an eye on because B12 is important for our health. Yeah. Also iron, which I spoke a little bit about before, but iron is present in some plant foods, but when it's in a plant food, it's harder to absorb. Mm-hmm. So we absorb heme iron much easier than we absorb the plant iron. Yeah. So that's something. Another one, I've seen a few, just generally not enough protein. Mm-hmm. So not getting the good plant sources of protein, like your legumes, tofu, tempeh, stuff like that. And I have seen, plant-based clients that it's plant-based, but it's not healthy plant-based. It's like a lot of refined carbs and not really hitting all those things. And also DHA. So DHA is an essential omega-3 fatty acid that's found mainly in oily fish. So we can get ALA, which is another omega-3 fatty acid, and we can convert that to DHA, but not very well.
Is that the algae variation?
So algae, you can get supplements from algae that contain both ALA and DHA. Mm-hmm. ALA is found in things like your flax seeds, chia seeds, walnuts, that kind of stuff. So you would need to be eating mountains of those to then be converting enough to DHA for your body to be able to cope with that. So that's something to look out for as well. Even though you might be eating plenty of nuts and seeds, it is harder for our body to convert the ALA to DHA. Mm-hmm. So supplementing might be appropriate. And if you're pescatarian, then you'll be looking at including your oily fish to make sure that you're getting it. And, omega-3 fatty acids tends to be something that comes up even in
meat eaters.
All my clients, meat eating clients as well. If we're not eating enough oily fish and good sources of that, then we tend to not be.
I think that's more so the problem, right? It's the good sources. That we don't necessarily have access to the good sources of it anymore that we used to.
Yeah, it's tricky. Yeah. And, there's the whole try and get it wild caught salmon. Like we can't get wild caught salmon in Australia unless you bring it in frozen from somewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's really tricky. I really like fresh sardines. That would be my number one pick for oily fish. If you can get fresh sardines from a fishmonger or somebody, they are so delicious and really so good for you.
And anchovies if you can get some. But once again, it has hard to get, and if you can get them fresh, then it's great. But good luck.
Yeah, that's it. Make friends with the fishermen.
Exactly.
To keep some for you if they do get it.
So it's an interesting point you brought up about the protein of them not necessarily getting enough protein in. Is part of that because it's not as easily readily available for the body to digest when they're eating some sources of their proteins as well?
I think so. I have come across though clients that just go, well, I don't really like tofu, or I don't like tempeh. So they're happy to do beans, but that's about it, and they're not getting the full range of amino acids and getting enough of it. Like I've never been plant-based, so I can't really say from experience, but personally, I imagine eating legumes at every meal might get a bit tough. And then also preparing them properly, if you're not soaking them before you cook them, then they're harder to digest, they can cause problems, and you might not be absorbing the nutrients in them as well. So there's a lot to it.
Yeah, I think it's like everything. If you're going to do it properly. And that's the same, like we could argue that against people who are eating in general. Like, hey, eat better food and do it properly because you're just harming yourself right now.
And you got to eat anyway. You know,
Exactly.
we're eating all day. It might as well be beneficial to you rather than harmful to you.
Yeah. Yeah,
Get the most out
exactly.
of it. Mm.
It's interesting that you brought up at the very start of the conversation about like the higher carb, lower calorie sort of approach and attack. And I think realistically, the thing that gets lost the most there is your good quality fats, right? Like that's a lot of what goes missing, and that's so beneficial for so many hormonal processes that happen in the body.
Yeah, we need it.
Which is where we see a lot of people like who've gone and done a bodybuilding competition, for instance, and they come out the other side and they don't reverse diet properly, and then their hormones get all whacked out, and then they're a mess for the next 6 years potentially because they haven't done anything about their diet in that state. Have you? I don't know if this is something this is completely off the customer hand, but have you ever worked with, say, for instance, like bodybuilders or anything like that in regards to their dieting in general?
No, I'd be fascinated too. I think it would be really interesting. I think I'd probably struggle a little bit because I'd be like, oh, please just, don't cut, don't. But yeah. It would be interesting. I learned about it as part of my studies, and I do find it fascinating. I find it a little bit scary, a little bit intimidating in some of the extremes, But with any extremes, I find quite, that's a bit outside of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
And I really want to research that and hone in on what's happening and how we can best support that person. I mean, I'm not going to tell people don't do what you want to do.
No, exactly.
If that's your dream, go for it. But yeah, I think it would take a lot of work for me to feel comfortable telling people or supporting people to do that. Yeah.
Stace, when she did Stace did a competition, and she did it all through using just G5 protocols and just dropped her food gradually as it went on week by week.
Yeah.
Apart from when it came to comp day, when she carb loaded just to bloat the muscles out and make them look cool. And it was a really interesting process to go through, but hell, she was grumpy. Like it was not pleasant to be around, to be honest. And that's what you hear about a lot of people who are dieting to do something like that. And I'm all for performance and I think feeling well as well as performing well in the gym.
Definitely. Yeah. And I mean, I tell people, I get clients that come in and they want to lose weight and they're feeling like they need help with that. And I always say, my priority is your health.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm not going to go, okay, do this to make you drop weight if I don't think that you need to. And a lot of the time I don't think they need to. I think they look just fine. They're in a healthy weight range. Everything's working all right. My priority is your health. It's not a number on a scale.
Yeah.
But I do understand that some people have that priority for whatever reason, whether they're competing, they might have a job that requires them to be a certain way, like jockeys and stuff like that, where my priority is still going to be their health, but I've got to make that work in with what they're trying to achieve. So it can be a little bit tricky.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Not to get in the way of anyone, but it's like, hey, I think really that's the same thing that's what the Chief Life has always been about, is about your health first. And if you so happen to get abs along the way, then that's great. That's a good byproduct from looking after yourself. Yeah. I think when we transition people's thinking around from it being about the aesthetics to being about the health, we typically see better results anyway, because they've got something a little more to stand on. It's not just about aesthetics and that's it.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's why I love the Chief Life, because it's not a restrictive diet. It's so full of healthy foods. It's lovely. That I think, the message that we're sending is about how you can still achieve the goals that you're trying to achieve, whether it's better performance, a little bit of fat loss, all those things that people come in saying, I need help with this. But you can do it and still feel full after every meal and feel satisfied and be healthy and be glowing and be full of energy and not be so restrictive.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I've been very intrigued to even play around. Like I play around with a lot of diets just in general, just because I like to use myself as a bit of a guinea pig. And I've been thinking about potentially doing something a lot higher carb and less fat. And I'm a bit like unsure as if I really want to go down that route, because I really like having a well-functioning brain, and I find that when I drop my fats too low, it doesn't work as well. But I've never done it really long term, because I've always got like a month in and be like, fuck this, I miss my brain, and go back out of it. So I'm and ahhing as to whether to or not.
Yeah. It's interesting because it is important, I think, to experiment on ourselves. And I've tried different things. You know, I tried to go keto for a while and just didn't work for me.
Yeah.
I couldn't hack it. And I find that with clients too. Some do it really well and cope really well, and they blow me away because I go, how is that working?
Yeah.
With such little amount of vegetables that they're eating and all this stuff, but they feel fantastic. So I support them. I make sure they're getting the nutrients they need. But then for me, it just didn't work.
Yeah.
And I couldn't maintain it. So it is fascinating, but it really shows how individual everyone is and how individual what you're eating should be as well. That should be about you. It shouldn't be about what worked for somebody else, because
I think that's the hard thing, and it's probably why people have the desire to have six packs and whatever else, is because in the modern day we've got Instagram and we've got every person flashing what they've got, and it makes people then feel insecure and think that they have to go and do that. Whereas it's like, no, if you're feeling energized and you're getting through your day with being pain free and a healthy body, then that's the gold standard, really. It's like, just someone's got a six pack that, you know, it doesn't mean you have to have one too.
Yeah, that's right. I actually had a similar conversation with another practitioner yesterday. We were talking about body image and at my, in my early 20s, I guess, I never really thought about food much. I ate whatever I wanted, and maybe I'm genetically blessed. Maybe intuitively I was doing the right things. I don't know. But I was thin. I never struggled with my weight. Yeah. But I was sick. I was always getting a sniffly nose or a cough or a cold or whatever. And now I'm probably 10 kilos more than I was then. And I don't get sick. No, exactly. Yeah.
And that's the end goal, right? Like to not have to deal with the sniffles every single winter, like to get a flu every winter, if that's something that's happening to you, or you're getting sick during summer, like it's not that common, right? Or it shouldn't be. Unfortunately, it is common, but it's not the normal, I guess, is the better way to put it.
Common's not necessarily normal.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And I think I do see that a lot of the time too. I'll say to patients, how's your immune system going? And I go, yeah, it's pretty good. And then I'll say, well, how often do you get sick? And they go, oh, yeah, 3 times a year. Like, it's not really good.
No, exactly. And I mean, so this is actually another question that we hadn't really discussed, but something like antibiotics, like if you're someone who utilizes antibiotics often because of sickness, like it's a perpetual cycle, I see, that typically once they start them, they need them more and more and more and more. And it's actually something that even the people who created antibiotics have said, like, hey, we created a demon. When we created antibiotics, we did the world a disservice. Although it saved a lot of people, they're like, we're not sure if it was actually all that worthwhile because of the damage that it does. And so when you're working with someone who, say, for instance, has gone hard on the antibiotics, what's the sort of protocol there?
Oh, we'll address whatever gut issues are happening, because generally, even though they might not realise it, there'll be things that are out of whack in there, because antibiotics, as much as they're lovely and they wipe out whatever infection might be causing you trouble, they wipe out everything. Yeah. So just re-establishing that microbiome and just getting that back into balance is so where valuable. We would start. And so it's not just, probiotics are really important, but prebiotics are really important too, because if you've got all the bugs in there but you're not feeding them what they need to be eating to flourish, then it's kind of a waste of time. So and then gut healing, if it's warranted. I mean, everybody presents differently, and it just depends on the person. But your immune system predominantly comes from your gut. Your mental health relies really heavily on your gut working. Like I was saying, I've been looking right into gut and skin axis and how that, how your skin presentations are affected by your gut health. So many things start with your gut, and if you've taken a lot of antibiotics and really disrupted what's happening in there, then you can see that start to present in so many different ways, and getting ill a lot of the time is just one of them. But yeah, antibiotics, they have their place, I think.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
We just do tend to rely on them a little too heavily for a lot of things. And there are natural alternatives sometimes that could help you achieve what you need to achieve without having to go down that route.
Yeah, definitely. We did a cooking demonstration on the weekend for a charity event. One of the guys posted up, I haven't seen the study, but he just posted that there was a study that's just been conducted that said that having probiotics, like a probiotic tablet, and then going and having an antibiotic can actually make the results of the antibiotic worse. And he's like, do you have any understanding as to why? And because I haven't seen the study, I didn't really know how to answer. I was like, no, sorry, like I can't give any insights to it. But it would be interesting to kind of have a look at that and see if that's actually what the results were saying, and if so, why that would happen. But I also kind of think, well, why not utilize food a little bit better then as well? Like use that as your as your probiotic instead.
Yeah, definitely. I think it depends too. Like there's so many different strains of probiotics and they're all indicated for different things.
Yeah.
So getting a really good understanding of that is really probably quite important. It'd be interesting to see that study and see what it was that they're actually using.
Yeah.
And what the antibiotic was for, what they were trying to achieve by using it, or what kind of infection it was targeting. Because there's so many products,
variables.
There's so many different like I said, different probiotics. And if I was going to use a probiotic for someone, I'm going to ask them all those questions that I've talked about to work out what's the most appropriate for them, because they're all different. They all have different affinities for different parts of the body, and they have different effects on what's going on. So, and that's where your testing can come in really well too, because that can just tell us straight out what you're lacking or you've got too much of.
Yeah. I think that's where it gets hard as well, right? Like without doing some form of testing, you're just hearing, well, probiotics are good for me. Like what probiotics are good for you, right? Like the one that's just selling off the shelf. Like, is it actually doing anything or not?
That's right.
Very interesting.
And taking them the right way and feeding them and all that kind of stuff. That's why it's so important to get some guidance. And I say that with any supplements off the shelf or by prescription from a practitioner. They have the potential to do harm if you use them incorrectly, and they vary in quality, in sources of where they've come from, in the potency, so whether or not you're going to get a therapeutic dose from them, all kinds of things. So there's been studies done that show that supplements just get weed out and it's just a waste of money. But what were they using? Was it a good quality supplement? Was it rubbish? Was it absorbed? Did they support the person's digestion to make sure they could get the benefits from it? There's so many things that you really need guidance to make sure you're going to not waste your money and not just pee it out.
I think that's also, like, as much as science is incredible, it's where it can be incredibly flawed as well, right? Because they don't show all of the variables of it. It's like, hey, well, this is what we found. It's like, yeah, but based on what was the other backtrack to that?
Exactly. Exactly. And as part of my training, I was taught to question everything. So when you look at a scientific study, just because it's a scientific study doesn't mean anything. You've got to look at who funded it. Was it a big sample size that they used, or did they just do this study on 3 people? How selective were they? Was it a good range of participants? What were the control measures that they used? All that kind of stuff. There's so many things that can affect the outcomes, and if there was anything that you wanted to prove correct or incorrect, you probably could do it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
well, that's so interesting. So, I mean, it's kind of, it's a rabbit hole, really, isn't it? To kind of wrap things up, I think a good question to ask you is that people obviously come to you because of a range of different things, but is there like a common occurrence that you're seeing from, say, different genders? So, for instance, women are constantly coming to you because of this, and men are constantly coming to you because of this, or is it just a widespread?
Well, I will start by saying I get far more women than men as clients, which is interesting in itself, but I think that's that whole men don't go and fix it till it's broken. Sorry to generalise, not all men. But generally, the males that I see in clinic, quite often it's just low energy or they want some help managing stress, stuff like that. So, and that can relate to a few different things. If they've got low energy, I'll look at what they're eating, whether they might have some deficiencies, maybe some hormone issues, lifestyle stuff that's going on, and go from there. So there's no real set trend. I've had people come to me with kidney problems, I've had gut problems, I've had weight loss, hormone irregularities, all kinds of stuff. But generally, quite often it just starts with, I've just got low energy. And then it kind of stems off from there as to working out why you've got low energy.
Yeah.
Females, I would have to say, most of my clients that come to me come for weight loss. But then when we start talking, they didn't realise beforehand that I can do so much more.
Yeah.
And also when I start taking their case and asking the questions, it starts to become apparent that the extra weight that they're carrying, if they're carrying extra weight, may be a symptom of something else that's going on. And if we can address the hormone imbalances or address the food intolerances or anything like that, then the weight starts to come off anyway, because your body doesn't want to be carrying extra weight, but something's out of whack that's making it not let go of it.
Yeah.
And so if we can address those things, then it tends to come around. So I do see that a fair bit, where people come in and say they just want to lose 10 kilos and they're really struggling, but there's lots of other things going on that they didn't realise I could help with. And then I end up helping them with their PMS, because PMS is not normal, ladies. Even though it's common, it's another one of those common not normal things. We shouldn't be cranky. We shouldn't have painful periods. They should just come and go like no big deal.
And I mean, unfortunately, what they do with supplementing with the pill can make things so much worse, right? Like,
yeah, it's another one of those Band-Aid things that really doesn't address the reasons why you're having those problems. And the pill tends to be prescribed for a lot of things. You go to the doctor for acne, they might put you on the pill.
Yeah.
Go to the doctor for irregular periods, they put you on the pill to regulate it, which it doesn't do. Because when you're on the pill, a period's not even a period, it's a pill bleed. It's not a proper, you haven't had a cycle to have a period. So, and I think just suppressing somebody's hormones like that really long term is not going to have the greatest outcomes. It concerns me. It also can contribute to nutrient deficiencies and things like that. So there's a whole, I mean, that's a whole other podcast, Maddie.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. But I thought we should quickly just unput that a little bit for people to understand.
Yeah, and it does. You know, people go and they go, oh, I've got acne and the doctor gave me the pill and now my skin's clear. It's fantastic. And it does work. And it does do that because it's suppressing the problems.
Yeah.
But then when they try and come off the pill, it comes back quite often worse. And then we've got to do all that repair work anyway. And plus you've just messed with your reproductive system and shut it down for a period of time, which, you know, our bodies are designed to have a cycle every month. And if we're stopping it from doing that, what's the long-term ramifications of that?
Exactly. Big issues. And I think we're seeing that really unfold now in modern day, because for so long it was just, well, let's put them on the pill. Like everyone gets on the pill and that's it. That's the normal.
And it was empowering for women back then to go, I'm in control of what's happening. So it was a great thing for them. But the reality is that it's causing a lot of other issues that are starting to get recognition now. So.
No, that's awesome. I think I think that's a good place to kind of wrap it. But it also, that was a super insightful podcast. I think listeners, if you feel that you fit into the category of needing to have a one-on-one with Belinda, then you can jump on the website. It's just under the nutrition tab. It's literally just under one-on-ones. So if you jump into that section, scroll down, you can find Belinda's name and you can have a one-on-one with Belinda, and you can, that's the starting realm. Like you said, that's the investigation state where Belinda gets to question you about everything, and then you progress forward from there.
It is. And I often tell people the magic happens afterwards. So the initial consult, it's all about just me gathering data and working out what's going to happen. And I will give you, you know, after an initial, you get a treatment plan. I might prescribe something if it's really obvious that you need it, but I might just refer you to get some tests done, so that we're not just stabbing in the dark trying to guess what we need to do. But then it's at the follow-up consults where we really start to build and start to put the treatment protocols together. And we start seeing some results. So it's kind of, it's not a one-off. No. Wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. You've fixed everything that was going on for the last 5 years. I wish it was, but it doesn't work that way. So it is, we do end up, I do end up seeing clients quite regularly for a little while until we get on track, and then we just kind of peter out. Depends on what's going on though. If it's not something too complex, then we can usually tackle it in 1 or 2 consults. But if it's something a bit more chronic or a bit more deep, then it takes a little bit longer.
I think it's like realistically the biggest thing when it comes to nutrition and changing your lifestyle around is that it comes to consistently doing something. Like you've consistently done something incorrect potentially for so long, and that's where it's got you to where it's got you to.
Yeah.
But we need to understand that we need to consistently apply those things for a long amount of time. It's not just about 1 week or 2 weeks or anything like that. And I've seen this a lot with the Chief Dads program that I've been running. We've had some guys and they're absolutely crushing it, and then all of a sudden 1 week they have a slow week when they're dropping weight, and they're like, what the heck's going on? Like, I've done everything as I was meant to. I'm like, there's nothing going on. Like, it's just part of the process. Like that's completely okay.
Yeah.
Let's not focus on the weight. Like, let's focus on how you're feeling. Do you feel good? Yeah, I feel great. Well, that's perfect. Let's keep moving through. And it's funny that one thing like that, like we come in with this expectation, that's all that we get stuck in the head, and then it can affect everything in the long term because of some expectations that you put on something that really doesn't need an expectation. It's like, okay, let's just consistently change life and we'll do better for it.
Yeah, that's it. And also, you know, there's things that people come to me for help with that it's been their whole life. They've been living like that, or they've been putting up with this for the last 5 years, and they've tried all the doctors and no one's given them answers, and they really want to get to the bottom of it. And so it's going to take a while. It takes a while to unravel all of that and get back to balance if you've been imbalanced for a while.
Yeah, definitely. No, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much